Welcome to New Officer Survival. My name is Dr. Spencer, and I will be facilitating this class for you. Here's what we're talking about. We're talking about year one, how to survive and thrive as a new officer. This is the corrections edition. It is not, so there's another, no, not section. This is off. Goodbye. Welcome to New Officer Survival. My name is Dr. Spencer. We're talking about year one, how to survive and thrive as a new officer. This is the corrections edition. There are many reasons that someone decides to become a correction officer or detention officer, right? You may have always wanted to work in law enforcement. Someone could have referred you, a family member, a friend. Perhaps you needed a job and they were simply hired. And believe it or not, in some cases, individuals may be referred by an inmate to work at an agency. And unfortunately, some decide to work in corrections for the wrong reasons. There isn't much disagreement as to the impact of negative and perhaps criminal acting individuals. Their attraction to the field is specifically directed towards the vulnerability and the opportunities that are afforded by the facility. However, this has been the case for centuries. This didn't just start, and this has been the case for most agencies. So their success, criminals that is highly dependent upon good people like yourself turning the blinds out. Why you matter and what's ahead? Well, you matter because we need you. There's a shortage across the country. I mean, in almost every single agency. And the biggest shortage, we believe, is in good people. There are people, of course, applying to work in the field, but all those people are not genuinely good people. Or individuals may come in with good intentions, but are at risk because of certain circumstances that make them more vulnerable or susceptible to temptation. There are several opposing actions that occur simultaneously, and this creates the current state and condition of the environment. So when you were going through training and you were getting your opportunities to hear about what happens inside the facility, and some individuals in training will actually go to the facility to get a chance to shadow and to see what is actually going on. And even if you did that, what you'll find is it's still not going to be exactly like you thought it was. So routinely, the days are more similar than they are different. So the routine of what we do becomes predictable, not just by inmates, but by the agency as well. In many cases, inmates and some bad actors are able to exploit the conditions by the shortage of staff or lack of purposeful routine, right? Chaos, officers overlooking infractions, and the failure and lack of administrative support. I think one of the biggest problems is that when we know there's something going on, and many people know that something's going on, and we just don't do anything about it, that's very disheartening. And of course, as a new person, it's even more disheartening, right? This is not what you thought it was going to be, but you know what? You're going to make a difference. Say the number of good people outweigh individuals that play defense, as well as individuals that do things that are not in support or in light of your policies, and quite frankly, in light of the law as well. So unfortunately, many blame administration for the conditions in the facility. The truth is we all have a part, including you. So you may matter, right? And you may be a part of the remedies, but if you don't be purposeful and make what you matter, right? And make the part of the remedy that you participate in effective. See, you can do good for 99% of your tenure, but that 1% of your tenure, it taints you. And see, we're in the first year, and what we're doing is we're looking forward towards the next year. We want to carry things with us towards that potential graveyard of officers who end up being terminated, officers who end up being hurt or injured, or even worse, incarcerated. So you do matter, and you are a part of the remedies for the agency, along with the management and the administrators for the agency. What makes matters worse is that officers are exposed to a few bad actors, right? And in some cases, they're recruited to the other side. It is difficult in many cases for these bad actors to get officers to come to the other side. But they succeed in many cases, even with the most resilient of officers, right? So we have to make sure, why do we sign up for this? Why are we working in this field? And do we understand the dynamics of the field? Do we have individuals who have been accused, right? Individuals have been convicted, right? They're being housed inside a facility, and you are hired to ensure their safety and the security of that apparatus, of that facility, right? In the best interest of their health by doing your job. And so if everybody listens to that and everybody does that, I think we would be in a different place right now. I don't think the shortage would be as much as they are. Incidents would decrease, I mean, tremendously. Well, here's the thing about individuals being recruited to the other side. Oftentimes, they're the ones that get caught. See, it's the new ones that always gets caught. They're the sacrificial lamb, right? They're the let that some inmates and some officers let the agency have as a conviction or as a bust, so to speak. And so, yeah, you have individuals that come in that may get caught up on the wrong side. And you look at me right now and you say, well, I know someone's been here 5 years. I know someone's been here 10 years that is not doing the right thing. Yes, the environment, right? The field, it coddles problems instead of resolving problems. And so, yes, people can stay in that and people can survive that as long as it is unhealthy, right? But everything comes to an end. And if you're involved in that, what end do you think it will come to with you? The short-term benefits and gratifications that one may receive. Here's an example. You come to work, you're a corrections officer. You try to keep to yourself and stay to yourself, but you have a financial issue, right? You're going to be evicted. You're behind a month on your rent, right? And then you have another month's rent due. And you come to work, and as much as you try to keep that to yourself, you decide to start sharing that. Someone makes an offer to you. They can help you out with your $600 that you owe for your rent, that you're past due for rent. It's just something that you got to do for that. And you're like, well, it seems harmless. I don't see how anyone can get hurt. So whatever it is you do, you get the money. And here we are. Guess what? As that last month was past due, this month is also due. And so what do you do then? And don't forget, the $600 that you made, it doesn't go away. See, that's the catch. That's the lure. Get you to do something. Get you to do anything to leverage against you. Peek inside your brain. Peek inside your private life to find something to leverage against you. If you don't think people are working to do that, you're crazy, because they are. And you have individuals that are incarcerated, and that's what they do. They put a lot of energy in trying to turn individuals. And unfortunately, we have what's called inmate officers. These are officers that have been corrupted. These are officers who are part of the recruiting apparatus for the undercurrent at these facilities. It's just a bad mix. It's a bad thing. But we push those people out. We push them out with kidneys. We don't put them in opportunities where they can secret what they're doing, right? Because we're going to be present, right? And snitch, report. We've learned that there's no difference, right? Because the job mandates you report. People have labeled as snitching. Funny thing is, people tell on each other all the time. They tell on each other on a daily basis. Officers telling each other, inmates telling each other. What is snitching all about? It makes no sense. I'll tell you what snitching is about. Snitching is about compromising yourself. Snitching is about holding a secret that can cost you your job, that can cost you your freedom, can cost you your family. That's what snitching is. It's leverage over you. Think about it. Failing to report something is something tangible that someone can hold over you. And so it's like a catch-22. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But the most important thing is that we're talking about life and liberty and safety and security of the individuals that you work with, as well as the individuals, for as much as their detainment allows, their safety and concern too. And every problem unaddressed, for the most part, swells into increased problems. So when you're pushing that little boulder up the hill that ain't so hard to push, What happens when it starts to swell as your part in what you're doing is magnified by everyone else's part in the same thing? And now all of a sudden, that little boulder you got has become a monumental rock that is going to crush anybody that's in its way. You might have had a part in building that, even if it's something as simple as turning away and not seeing, right? I guess what troubles officers most is the fact that several people may know of behavior and nothing's done about it. If you can identify the problems and concerns, why can't you simply apply the consequences to the infractions, right? It seems that it could be remedied easily, but it just doesn't work that way. See, when we work in our different fields and different professions, we develop relationships with people. And for the most part, those relationships are meaningful and hopefully professional. But we begin to like people, I guess, and we begin to dislike people as well. The problem we have is that that part of the relationship that we develop that's going to blur our ability to be objective and to do our job. And that's when the relationship becomes unhealthy. Because you may like someone, you may actually admire someone, but that person brings contraband into the facility. I'm trying to figure out, where is your admiration placed? Because they're funny, because they're cool, because they're the best person to have around when something goes bad, because they're very strong and talented and is a great person to have in situations that may be trying. Or if the person is generous in conversation, maybe the person buys pizzas every now and then. I don't know. But what is worth any of those things, if you think about it? If you're sitting down without your job and you look back and you say, was any of that worth it? If you're sitting down because something went really bad and you're sitting behind bars, would it be worth it? See, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone says, because when you're on that other side, it will not be worth it. And the short-term gain is not worth the long-term misery, right? So if you can't identify the problem, it is what it is. But when you can, and we do nothing, we send a message, not just to the officer who's concerned about their report. We send a message to everyone else at the agency, at the facility, inmates and officers, that certain things will go undressed and therefore will pave a pathway towards your depravity, towards your ruining and worsening of the agency and the facility. We help do that. We help facilitate that. And we're scared. Really, a lot of times we're scared. And we're scared of what? In many cases, we're scared of the stigma and the rule not to report. We're not scared of what will happen if we do, because in most parts, you never know, right? What happens to somebody when they report something? You know, there's not a bunch of articles and news flashes and anything about that. It's just belief, this thing. If you snitch, it's not a good thing. You end up in a ditch or whatever the case may be. Well, guess what? We don't have a lot of people ending up in ditches. You know what I mean? Not at all. And I'm gonna tell you this too. If I see something, I'm gonna report something. And if I have an inkling or fear for my safety, I mean, honestly, a real fear for my safety. And I feel like I can't be protected in that sense because it's real, right? Because I can vividly know and vividly see. Then I have to make the decision. But it will never be a decision to not report. It'll be a decision to whether I can be safe in my skin, in that environment, whether the agency can help me be safe or not, or whether I need to find somewhere else where I can be safe. But to compromise my integrity, to compromise my honor, to compromise my values, some people may take lightly. But remember, that compromise might follow you pretty much everywhere you go. So just the profession and working in the profession, it's a very, very serious step. It's a very needed step that we need for everyone. But we also want you to be able to feel comfortable enough to make the right decisions when you need to, and reach out to the people that you need to get the support that you need. If there's an infraction, what would you do with it? Well, the common thing is you would report it to your supervisor and you would document it. Is someone saying that you really shouldn't even report it to your supervisor? Is someone telling your supervisor that they shouldn't report it to the lieutenant? Or the lieutenant, that they should report it to the captain? I mean, is this what we're looking at? See, it may be an assumption of everyone's because the sergeant can't report it to the lieutenant if you have it reported to the sergeant. Why isn't it easy? The conditions of what we do and how we respond to things is human nature. So don't always simply process obvious decisions and actions. There are conditions to our actions, even though our thoughts tell us the proper way. Some our concerns are about relationships, right? And how we interact with people and the fear. And one of the most fearful parts of being in a relationship when it comes to a situation where you might have to do the right thing and that fear, right, of retaliation, the negative impact. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be said. It can be done in looks and faces and everything else. But how else would you see it? Say you didn't report it. Then what would you want to receive? The opposite of that? Smiles, right? Applause. And for what? So we can't be in fear of doing our jobs because others who work with us and who may be incarcerated by us doesn't want us to do. It doesn't make sense. So I'm also concerned with how infractions like these and may have been addressed in the past, and it may result in not being favorable towards the reporter, right? So it may not have been you that reported, but maybe a colleague reported something, and you saw the fallout as a result of that. In fact, you saw the only impact of that was the fact that everybody knew that it was reported and the consequences of everybody knowing, not the consequences for the perpetrator. So if you sit and see the individual not being addressed, the individual not being consequenced, it kind of makes you sit back and say, you know what? So I report this like I'm supposed to. They don't do anything about it. And I have to walk past this individual every day. I have to deal with his thoughts about what I reported, right? I have to deal with those things. And so when we have a mechanism such as that, where someone reports something and they can't even get the support of their supervisor and and the insurance of security and protection, that is paramount. See, this isn't something you do impromptu. This is the message that is sent from day one, right? We protect our own. We will not let our own get home. And if we find out that one of our own has compromised us, we're going to get to the end of that. And it's not going to be nice. Everyone has a right to come to work, have the ability to do their job. And when that job becomes stressful, to receive the supports they need to manage, to keep the agency, to keep the facility safe and secure. And they have a right to do that without duress from their colleagues and from superiors as well. They have a right to have individuals present of higher rank to show that they are supported and to show that the conditions, right, that they encounter where they're being asked to enforce rule, law, and policy, that those are also being enforced by individuals superior to them in real time and in their face. See, a lot of supervisors, some supervisors, I should say, will give instructions for someone to do something that is really their role to do. And so the courage behind supervisors and lieutenants and captains and on up, it has to be paramount and shown. It has to be there. Please don't expect the correction officers to be more courage than you, to have more bravado than you do, because they are at more risk. You're not. And so we have to respect the fact that that is true. And so therefore you need to be present to help. And so as a new officer, you have to reach out to your supervisor and to your lieutenant and your captain. You have to communicate your needs, even if it's about shortages or interaction or things that are going on. You know, many ways to report incidents. One, you report it in the record. Problem is everybody don't read the record. They should, right? You can report it in time. You can identify the time in which incidents have occurred, and it can be viewed and followed with the camera, and it can be consequence through that process as well. But there's some things that don't lend us the freedom of time. Some things we have to deal with right away. I mean, honestly, someone brings in drugs are laced with fentanyl, officer gives to an inmate, inmate gives to an inmate, inmate overdoses on the fentanyl, officer brought in is the last catch in the fishing expedition, the last catch, right? That is the face value of things. The inmates in the cell, what happened? But the issue is that you got to breach. You got to breach. You got someone that's brought something in that's contributed to the demise of another human being. And so when individuals start to quantify that and qualify that, the profession will be in trouble, because there's a lot of things, little things that have led to tragedies. A lot of us, need to be careful, because what you may suspect is little. I just can't see this. I just won't see this. I won't hear this. What you think that may be little may be something that is so impactful that you're sitting in the courtroom. I tell you this, you follow your policies, you follow your training, and you will be fine. If you find yourself following people, you may end up in a situation. Know your policies, know your training, so you know what to do, right? We know individuals that there are some that might have been promoted through the ranks. That's few and far between. We know that. But we do know this, that many people have seen things that they've turned a blind eye, regardless of rank. So we know that too. As a new officer, you are bringing in your perspective. You're bringing in your resiliency. You're bringing in your value added need and support and dedication to the job. See, in order to turn the tide on all these things that we're talking about, is that we need new officers, and we need good officers to always be good, right? To always do the right thing, and to lean on and get the supports they need. When they're experiencing things that are traumatic to themselves, that they are able to get mental health support through their EAP program or through their private insurance, they're able to talk to individuals and process these things. That is very important, right? The individuals need to make sure at home they're balanced, right? Because we don't want to bring our home into work, but we do. We can say that you can't, but we do. We're upset at our mate, we bring it in, right? If we're struggling about bills, we bring it in. See, it's those things. And when we start sharing those things with people, we shouldn't be sharing it too. We shouldn't act surprised. People in our business know our business and know our vulnerabilities to compromise. So we got your back. I mean, honestly, we do. I'm the president of Dynamic Training and Consulting, and we are producing these mini modules so that officers many times don't have to wait on their agency to get the training and get the boost that they need. And we're offering this to a variety of top professionals in the country. And you'll look on the website and see that. We got your back. And I'm gonna tell you this, if you call me, if you call my agency, and you tell me I need this training, and you say your agency won't pay for the training, if you call me and you tell me that, I'm paying for your training because I'm providing your training. I mean, we're not going to leave you hanging out there because you think you need the training, you believe you need the training, and there's a budgetary issue. We do it all the time, and we work with agencies all the time to make sure that people get the training they need. And as a new officer, you need to load up on that training, and you need to listen, and you need to put those practices in place. You need to be patient. There's no rush. You need to be patient. You're at the facility for a long time, right? 8 to 12 hours. You have to be patient, and you have to let the environment, you have to let it be good, right? That's what you're there for. People look around and say, well, God, it's not a whole lot for me to do. Officers complain about not being paid enough, but the honest thing is, what is it that it's not allowed to do? I'll tell you what you need to do. You need to be active. You need to be walking, right? You need to be walking your halls. You need to be seeing your inmates. You need to be moving. You need to be active. And if you're responsible for something, you need to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to be as responsible and accountable as you possibly can. Okay? It's an absolute fact that the good balance of corrections is specifically attributed to good officers. Without the preponderance of good officers, regression and corrections would be an absolute nightmare. And I mean spot on with this. In every agency, you're going to have a good nucleus of good officers, right? And you may have some bad actors, right? Or some bad apples. But in the end, the good officers will always outweigh the questionable ones. But they may not be willing to take the risk, not the same risk as the risky ones. They're not willing to do that. And you have to understand that somebody is willing to compromise their freedom. They're willing to compromise their life. They're willing to compromise even your safety and the safety of other people. That is a commitment and a dedication. It's above the dedication of many good people, because a good person's dedication may only be that I am good, but not all these other things that require you to fight through the resistance that you'll be facing. It's tough. And that's why officers who make it through their first year and who remain good officers have the potential to be a dynamic professional in this field of corrections. Okay. We know that the profession needs you. We know that the profession needs leaders, whether they're sergeants, whether lieutenants, captains, whether they're wardens, whether they're superintendents. We need people to grow, and to grow in a healthy way for the future of the field, right? For the future of corrections. So let's talk about how you can have a successful first year. Every officer should know every detail and requirement of their position and their duties. You should also know when these things are required to be done as well, not just knowing them, but knowing when it's appropriate that they need to be delivered and that you're actually doing them. You should know that what you're responsible for, right, from the moment you begin your shift and to the last minute that's there. This is very important as you progress through your shift. So does your colleagues, and each of you. You're all independent and you're dependent upon each other at the same time. See, that's the way the job can be done completely. It's hard to be successful in one area of a pie and the rest of it be disaster, and then you call it a success. We are in this together. And unfortunately, we bring the good and the bad with us, but we're all in this together. So equally important, much of what you do will not be in the presence of your colleagues, and therefore their expectation is the same as yours. Everyone must be diligent. Everyone must be consistent and effective. And when one breaks down, the entire system is vulnerable. So we have to pick up when one breaks down. Knowing your job, doing your job, equally important. Your agency is responsible for you receiving the required training for your position. And I mean all of the training for your position. And you may think you need to receive all that on the front end, and some people, they do. But there's no such thing as receiving all of training, because nobody ever will receive all of training. But you have to be diligent. You have to seek training out to better yourself, to strengthen your weaknesses. You're responsible for participating in training. So when you go to training, don't just sit in a room and play on your phone or write notes or have side conversations. You need to actively participate in training at the highest level. And you are new. You should be soaking in and trying to get everything you can to put yourself in a better position, seeking understanding when things are not clear, and engaging others while adding value to the training that you and they are in, right? Why is this important? Chances are individuals who are also participating in training, some are likely to be your coworkers, and you may work shifts or be required to work shifts or intervene with them in different units or different pods based on certain situations that may arise. And so just because you're in training with someone and they're working someone else, you need to understand you most likely will be working with them in some capacity or not. And especially if you're working in an agency that has a lot of overtime and a lot of shortages. Sometimes you go where you're sent, right? Partnering with your colleagues, partnering with your supervising managers during training bridges mutual learning and understanding, which enhances the quality of those working relationships, right? You're a new officer, you're going to training. Let's say it's PRIA, okay? So during your tenure prior to the PRIA training, you might have questions or concerns, or you might have seen certain things. Here's the place where you should address those things, that you should talk about those things for, at a minimum, clarity of your mind, right? This is confusing to me. Is this the right way to do it? This is the way that I've seen it. I may be misunderstanding it. There's a way to communicate that, and so that training adds more value to you. If you go to training and all you get is the value that's set forth in the summary for the training, then you haven't been to training. When you go to training, you add value to the training, and everyone else adds value to the training. That's what makes training exceptional. And you should be a part of that. And you should be proud to be a part of that. Okay. Knowing your job, because inmates will. You may not know what you're supposed to do, but they certainly do. And they're going to tell on you, right? They know what you're supposed to be doing. And some will do anything to get you to deviate from your job, right? A small deviation could be a victory for them, right? Do your job. Kind of obvious. Yes, we want everyone to do their job. Why is that so hard? Well, what is your job? So I spent over 20 years asking that question to officers, correction officers, sergeants, lieutenants, majors. It's amazing what comes back when you ask that question. Simply put, virtually nothing. Because in this day and age, in detention, in corrections, people don't know their job, but they walk around all day acting like they're doing something. So how is it that you're doing something when you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing? Or do you even know what you did yesterday? See, when someone asks you what your job is, if you don't know what your job is, tell them what you did yesterday, right? Hopefully those are good things, right? If we look at your job description, there are plenty of duties and responsibilities that you can list, but you would actually have to do them, right? Moreover, despite the reluctance or inability to describe one's duties, officers do way more than they give themselves credit for, and you do. See, one of the things that you do not give yourself credit for, and people ask you what you do, the biggest thing that you do is that you show up to work. You're there and you're present. And why are you there and present? To provide safety and security for the inmates that are there, right? You're also there to make sure the routine and the programming that are going on, the inmates get to where they're going, to provide oversight, to make sure inmates are not hurting other inmates, right? To make sure your colleagues are not disappearing in blind spots where they should never be, correct? So there's a whole lot that you actually do, right? You're having to assist, you're having to be counselor in chief because individuals are arguing and they're disagreeing. And we're talking about staff, but you're also going to have that with inmates too. So when people say, well, what do you do? Come on, man. Come on. Represent yourself. If you're vying for a promotion, I think what your supervisor, or at least their supervisor, or even their supervisor, has pretty much not heard is exactly everything that actually somebody actually does. People go into an interview and they talk about how they're going to be a good supervisor. But very few people talk about what they actually do. That would be amazing in an interview. Somebody actually shows up and says all the things that they actually do, even the things that I just named. Problem is that there's a lot of guilt associated working in detention and corrections. And people feel bad about some of the things that they do, maybe turning away or whatever. See, we have to live and stomach those things and understand we carry things with us. We carry them home with us, carry them in the bed with us, carry them in our dreams and mental status. Those things impact us. And all before you know it, we have two worlds. We have a home world, we have a detention world, and they become parallel, right? You start spending more time with inmates and other officers than you do with your own family, right? And the appropriateness of relationships at this point can become blurred a little bit, right? We don't want to cross that line at all, right? So do your job. Despite what you hear, do your job. You are most likely to hear a seasoned worker refer to training at the training academy as something that is different from what is going on here. You know what? It's true. It is. But when they say forget it, that's not appropriate and that's not so. And that's not true. Because you are learning the policies and you're learning the rules and how it's supposed to be. And when you go to a facility, the individuals that are working there are supposed to already be following these rules that you learned about. It's kind of a shock. And for some part, very disappointing sometimes. You want me to follow law and follow the rules and walk in and I'm in lawlessness. That's not fair and that's not proper. You want to preach policy, you want to preach it in training, you want to preach it in different instances. Well, ensure that it's happening. Don't just preach it, ensure that it's happening. And how do we do that? How do we ensure that's happening? We have to be present. And sometimes we have to be more present than we care to. And being more present and doing what you need to do provides a better balance in the future, even for yourself, if you feel like you're overwhelmed as a supervisor. But as a new officer, should make you feel good that the support is there. Even when a supervisor is dealing with someone else or dealing with another infraction that you can witness, it reinforces the rule of the agency, the rule of law as well. That's what we're supposed to be there for. The derelictions can be damaging, and equally potent, and it can turn people, right? You're in a situation, everything is like crazy. Everybody's doing whatever they want to. You're sitting around, you're saying, this is, why not, they're benefiting from it. And then before you can end up in a situation like that. There's professions out there, thousands of professions out there. Some people end up in detention and shouldn't be here. And they ruin their lives as a result of it. If you decide to be in this field, you got to step up. You got to step up and you got to be professional. You are supposed to be enforcing the law. You have to step up. When they look in a dictionary and they see that example, they should see you. It's your behavior, your actions, and everything else. That's what you signed up to do. Part of what you signed up to do is look to the left, look to the right, and see that maybe colleagues ain't doing something. We got to do something about that too. This is not going to fly. It's not going to keep going like this. And so, as a new officer, be careful. You're new. And sometimes you may not understand certain things. That's why you have to communicate with your supervisor. That's why you have to share in reporting of infractions and incidents with your supervisor. I mean, it's as simple as that. Newsflash. We're all supposed to make them act differently. Perhaps the issue isn't the by the book officer, but moreover. So what are we talking about? We're talking about stickler to the rules. The guy that comes in, follows all the rules, wants to follow rules, becomes an annoyance to his colleagues, right? Always saying what time people are supposed to be at work. Yeah, supposed to be here at 8:15, right? We don't get out till 5, it's 4:55. We're not supposed to do that. You're gathering at the water cooler. And people just don't like stickler. It's kind of strange though. It's really strange. Because stickler is the one that ends up keeping his job. Stickler is usually the one that ends up not making the violations or violating law. Stickler is the one that usually ends up not having to testify in court in their own defense. You choose. I thought that we were all sticklers. I thought that's why we all signed up for the job, because there's a problem and people have violated the law, been accused of violating the law. And the job is to protect not only the inmates that are there, the officers, but also the community. So I thought that's why we're all there, right? To keep it clean, to make sure that the lures, right, and temptations that got people in jail in the first place are not provided in the jail in the second place. So being by the book doesn't make one cruel or mean. It's making that person consistent. See, because if I know the rule and I follow the rule, then I'll have to have 15 deviations to the rule. It makes that person consistent. No one has to wonder where that person stands when it comes to that rule. Where does Stickler stand when it comes to being late? Stickler ain't having it. We know where Stickler stands. We don't need to ask Stickler that question, but we might have to ask Mike that question because Mike can't seem to get to work on time. See where this is going? All right, check out this video and we will talk afterwards. Here we go.
All right, it's Steve Maynard with Guardian RFID, and today I want to give you 4 tips on being a great, not a good, but a great corrections officer? Of course, there's hundreds of tips out there. I'm gonna give you 4 today. Number 1, being a corrections officer is a lifelong learning process. You're not gonna learn everything day 1, week 1, or year 1. You're going to learn something new every day you put that uniform on and you go to work. I promise you that, whether it's 1 year or 30 years, you're going to learn something new every single day. So be that sponge, soak up that information, that knowledge, that training, okay? Soak it up, put it to use through your everyday duties, okay? And also, as you soak that up, bring it out every now and then on some of these new officers. Help them out, share that knowledge, that training with those individuals, okay? Number 2, keep your personal life and your professional life separate. I know it's tough. It's a stressful job. Sometimes it wears off. It wears off at the house. There may be issues at home. There may be issues at work. Try your best not to let the two interfere with each other. If home life is rough or there's issues going on at home, whether it's financial issues, whether it's marital issues, it could be anything. Do your best not to let that affect you at work, because if you do not give your job 100% attention, focus, head on the swivel, that's the day that something may happen. That's the day you may get injured. You may get killed. You may mess up and be resulting in a civil lawsuit. Anything could happen if you're not 100% focused at work, because home life is on your mind. Same thing for home life. Do not let professional life, your job, your career, roll over to your house, to your home life. Okay. Do your best when you punch out, when you clock out, leave work at work. Okay. I know it's stressful. It's a long, stressful day of pure chaos sometimes. There's more rough days than good days in corrections. And I know it's tough to just leave it at the door or leave it in the locker room or go to your vehicle and just scream to make you feel better, because you can't do that inside of a housing unit. Do your best not to carry work life home, okay? Because it will affect your home life in a negative manner. Number 3, be honest with coworkers. Be honest with the inmates and the offenders in your facility. Don't lie. There's a phrase, you lie, you die. Be honest with those folks. Be honest with everyone. Don't lie about anything. Be straightforward. Know how to say yes. Know how to say no. I promise you're probably going to say no to the inmates and offenders more than you say yes. I promise you that, because they're going to ask over and over if they can have this, if they can do this, if they can go to this guy's cell, or they can do whatever. Don't lie to these guys. Don't promise them anything that you can't carry out. That's legal to do, of course. So be honest with them. Be honest with your coworkers. You know why? They're going to have your back, like you should have their back. Don't lie to them, because when there's that little bit of doubt there, it just creates a lot of issues between you, them, your shift, your platoon, and it's a mess. So be honest with them, okay? Don't lie to them. The last one, number 4, take your time when you're conducting your duties, okay? Take your time. Whether it's 8 hours, 10 hours, 12-hour shifts, they're on your time. You're running this housing unit or this pod, okay? You may have 2 inmates, you may have 200 inmates, depending on the size of your facility. Take your time. They're on your time. If the inmates are rushing you, asking you questions, guys, hold up. Let me do one thing at a time. Yeah, there is a such thing as multitasking, and you have to multitask, of course, in corrections. We know that. But don't put too much on your plate where you can't control the atmosphere. You can't control the way things are going inside your unit. Take your time, okay? If you have people calling you, you have people radioing you, wanting this, wanting that, medical, trades, booking, whatever it may be, still let them know, hey, I'm busy. I'll get it as soon as I can. Prioritize these items from most important to least important. You know, if an inmate's asking you to check court date, but you have medical saying, I need these guys, well, of course, medical is going to be more important than checking someone's court date, right? That's just a small example. So remember these 4 tips. It helps you become a great officer. Of course, like I said, there's many, many more tips out there. Always, if you want more videos, please shoot us information on video request. You know, steve.maynard@guardianrfid.com. Shoot me an email, say, hey, can you do a video on this? I'll be more than happy to. And as always, stay safe, get your team home safe. Visit us at Guardian RFID on YouTube.com. Like, share, and until next time.
So, what do you think about that? Seems to me that the people that care about you and the people that are interested in you and your success, are saying, kind of the same things, right? It really is all about you, whether you make the choice to fall off track. And some people do, and they get back on track. Or whether you make the conscious decision to do your job every single day and go home and be the best person that you could possibly be. Trying to be as whole as possible is important, because when we say, hey, we need you to be positive, how are you going to be positive if you don't have those things, those positive things in your mind, right? In your experience, right? That's how we draw our positivity. That's where we get it from, right? So maintaining a positive attitude in a detention environment is much harder than most people think. And yet we see people that are able to do that. And we don't, we may say, why are you always so happy? But we don't qualify or quantify all the time what it takes for that person to actually be happy or to be positive. It's pretty significant. And sometimes those deposits that you make earlier on in your life, those decisions that you make earlier on in life will bear fruit later on, right? And most people think that, okay, this guy is doing something extra special here. It's because the person is whole, is more whole, right? He's got things to reflect back on. So their entire life is not the facility, right? So inmates are incarcerated against their will and are housed in a variety of groupings with other inmates with varying personalities and behaviors and concerns, and so are officers. Everyone's not coming from the same house to work there. People are coming from different environments, and yes, some are coming from similar environments, but each individual is different. Come with their own set of assets, own set of deficits, and we hope the assets are certainly outweigh the deficits. That's our goal. That's what we always want. We want people to be trouble-free, and you're going to have some problems. You're going to have some intersections, and that's part of working in the field. And that's what training is about, and building your stamina and learning. Some of the most knowledgeable people at your agency have gone through some of the most trying times to be that knowledgeable. I mean, it is very, very true. You have officers who may come to work late, may come in with negative attitudes. They may be lazy. They may spread rumors, gossip, and everything else in between. That speaks volumes. It really, really does. Because everything about what I just said has no place in detention. But what happens is that a lot of people don't have anything else in their life that they can exhaust that filth with, and exhaust that filth too. And so, boom, it falls all out in the agency. And we don't know what's going on at home with people. We don't know if it's a great relationship. We don't know if there's problems with the kids, problems with the spouse, financial, if there's domestic issues. We just don't know. What we do know is someone shows up and comes to work. And we gotta respect that. We certainly gotta respect that. Okay. Now, not all facilities are the same, and every facility doesn't necessarily have the same issues or concerns as others. You may be in a facility that has 15 inmates, or you may be in a facility that has 2,000. There are stark differences. Geography makes a difference too. Where that facility is located, it often leads to where you'll draw your staff from and the type of staff that you'll have, right? So geography plays a part as well. We want you to maintain a positive attitude. It's easier for some people than it is for others, but it can be easy for you as well. Some people take things way too serious, and some people take things not as serious as they should. We have to know the difference between, we have to discern the difference between the two. So being positive, Some people even think that a negative attitude or abrupt attitude serves within the description and is used to maintain control, especially in times of crisis. This is true. There are times in which patience is something we don't have. There could be instances, exigent instances, or near exigent, or anything, crisis. Someone hurt, an altercation. Then we have to go to the cleft notes, right? We have to fall back on our training. We have to be prepared for these interruptions in the routine, right? These interruptions. So sometimes it's behavior related and behavior oriented, right? And if you're going to be dealing with behavior, by all means, hopefully you've received some counseling for mental health, not just mental health for yourself, but the mental health of inmates as well. You have to come to a point where you need to understand that the confinement in and of itself changes people, and that the behaviors in a facility doesn't necessarily mimic the behaviors in the community. And yes, some people come into the facility and they change and they develop new behaviors that they may not take with them when they leave. And so the confinement setting does change things, and it's not just for the inmate. The officer is confined as well, right? So while being able to shift into a more stringent mode, it has nothing to do with attitude and how we treat people and how we deal with people, because people deserve our respect, even in situations that are trying. Sometimes it's that disrespect in these trying situations that causes that situation to become more volatile, to become more critical. We want your talent. We want your ability, not your inability. We don't want what you can do to break something or to make things worse. We want that part of you that can make things better. Negative attitudes breed negative responses. And just because you don't get the responsibility doesn't mean it's not coming. For example, you piss an inmate off by saying things that you shouldn't say. Maybe it's controlling things, maybe it's power things, and maybe the inmate walks away and you think that there's nothing coming of that. 20 minutes later, inmate's in an altercation with another inmate. One of them ends up in the infirmary critically hurt. That inmate, the root of the inmate's frustration and anger could have been from the interaction that they had with you. And so that's when we say be positive. Be careful about depositing negativity and bad karma on people. Be careful about that, because the outcome of that could be pretty devastating, right? I want to know what you're doing and how you're acting, because if you are supposed to be a team, if you're supposed to be consistent, then we should all be operating the same. We should be trained on baseline behaviors and practices and consistently amplify and exemplify those actions, right? We want to reflect and mimic that model officer. That's you. That is you. If the most part of what you do is in accordance with your policy and your training, and there are minimal things that you need to work on, it doesn't mean that you're a bad officer. It just means that there's some things that you need to work on, right? Am I supposed to expect that you are being negative and therefore I should be negative, right? So I encounter someone being negative. Does it mean that the only way I can interact with this person is to just have like behavior, right? And to be negative too? Does it make sense? What does negative look like? Are you sure it's not you that's negative? Does his negative look like your negative? Yours look like his? What does negative look like? I tell you what it looks like. It looks pretty immature. It looks, pretty childish. People complaining about things that the person that they're complaining to has no power to fix. The only goal is to spread that and to keep that negativity going. How many things do people complain about that can actually be fixed by the people they're complaining to? They're complaining to the wrong people. It doesn't make sense. Maintaining a positive attitude is simple to qualify and qualify, meaning that everyone can get on board because we already know positive behaviors. We make choices. We know what's good. We know what's bad. We know we're being negative. We know we're being a jerk. We know we're being passive. We know we're crossing the line. And some people thrive on that. Some people want a negative environment. Some people want a gossipy, a drama-filled environment. Some people want that. Some people live in that. They thrive in that. That is their pull. That's what they want. And if you're working alongside that person, oh my goodness, it's got to be miserable. We got to pull them out of that. We certainly don't want you dipping into it. So all we want from everyone is to think about the risk and the danger and the little things that we may do, our attitude, the way we come across to people, right? The way we address people, perhaps the way we put someone down. Perhaps when we remind people that I'm the officer, you're the inmate, you're jail, and my power is telling you that and you being that, we have to be sensitive to the fact that for the most part, nobody wants to be there. So let's not damn where they're at. Because if you want hell where they're at, you got it. Right? People say there's nowhere else you can go but up. It's not true in detention. You can keep going down. And we know that. And chaos breeds tragedy. We have to maintain a routine, a purpose. And we have to know where people are. We have to know what people are doing so that we're not surprised by an unfortunate tragedy or incident, right? We have to be present. We have to be involved. We have to move, right? We get tired of work because we've been there so long, we sit down and we can't get back up because we're so tired. Don't sit down, right? Talk to your supervisor, take a break, get some fresh air. Okay, come back in, walk through the security, whether they tell you to or not, come back in, get back on your job, let's get to it, right? All right. So avoiding negativity, gossip, and distractions. How do we do that? Gee, how do we do that? Walking in the door, somebody's complaining. Walking out the door, somebody's complaining. Get a raise, somebody's complaining there wasn't enough money. So how do you get away from all of the negativity and everything else that's going on? How do you do that? You know, it's in you, it's inside of you. And when you come in, your character and everything about you is going to be challenged. And we pray that you have the courage to stand up to it. The job isn't that hard, you know, regardless of where you work at and how many people that are there. Their responsibilities, however, could be impossible. Because how can you be responsible for two pods when you can only be present in one? It's kind of tricky. So yeah, the responsibility and accountability for what you do is very, very difficult, very difficult. Right? So whether agencies admit it or not, the number one issue for most medium to large size agency is the report. It is. People say it's contraband. People say it's this, it's mental health. It's actually the report. Because if we reported what we should be reporting, it will bear out mental health. It will bear out contraband. It will bear out unprofessionalism. It'll bear out criminal activity. It will bear out all those things. And so the report in and of itself is what has been weaponized, right? For you not to be able to use, for you not to be able to completely do your job, right? In making those reports a revelation of what actually happened, right? And everything that actually happened. And so to stop the report, or stop the clarity of the report, or stop the thoroughness of the report, the honesty of the report, is a success for the on-current at your agency. And if you wonder why things are going on, even though you got good people, it's because people are not reporting and things cannot be addressed, right? So over many decades, as far back as we can remember, the inmate and the street word snitch has been inherited by the profession and has virtually destroyed the profession. In fact, the corrections industry has the worst business model that all professions ever created. The main reason is that the failed model is exempt from shutdown because where else will we put these inmates? On the other hand, the inmates and some officers have an impeccable business model that has survived over centuries. Absolutely. And they've created an environment in which their products and their needs and their behaviors and their wants can be met. And they destroy another business, another institution to do so. And that business is detention. That business is corrections. Oh yeah, there's some success that's going on there. And people frown down on it and talk about overtime, right? Retention and all these different things. But there's one thing that we should know that has been extremely successful, and that is the business model of the on-current inside of a lawful institution. Unheard of. Unheard of. Think about it. On the streets, you can sell a gram of cocaine. Let's just make a number up and say for $80. That's a one-time thing, boom, $80 right there. Depending on how many you got and how many you can sell, how much money you can make. That's why people do it. It's great money. But what's the difference inside a facility? How much would a gram cost inside a facility? Who's gonna pay for it? Who's gonna pay for any of it? Somebody is. Because I guarantee you this, nobody was paying for it, wouldn't be coming in. But people are paying for it, and they're paying tenfold. They're paying for minuscule pieces. And one thing that people need to understand, and people talk about it all the time, and that is fentanyl overdoses. There are plenty of fentanyl overdoses across this country, in public, private, inside facilities. We know that. But what we also need to pay attention to is that we have an addicted society and an addicted population. And we have an incarcerated addicted population. Their products get to them much later, and the cost may be much more. And the wait for those products could be the potential for an overdose as the individual is trying to get to the high, and it's not coming because they're not patient. And they're taking, and they're ingesting, and they're taking, and they're taking. And then what happens? The individual overdoses. People may think it's because of fentanyl, but it may be an overdose because the individual just put too much in the pile. That's where we're at. And that's where we're at with how we see the business of detention and corrections. It's the report, right? If people don't report things, we can't make any fixes. We can't make anything right. And I don't want to say it. I don't know how people sleep at night, how some people sleep at night. We've gotten so used to infractions being violated, either as a participant or what have you, that it's not really a big deal anymore, right? It's just like, it's routine, and it's not really like a huge thing anymore. It's private, it's secret, it's inside of a facility, so the public really don't know about it. We got satiated on it. It's like it doesn't even mean much anymore. The value of life, we got to be careful. Because, we got to be concerned about an inmate overdosing on fentanyl. But should we be even more concerned about whoever brought that crap in here? And is any of it still in here? Let's take a hard and embarrassing look at what the handful of inmates and officers have done to this profession. Operating off an almost perfect business model, inmates have made fools of the industry. What is their cost? You're going to incarcerate them? How do you incarcerate the incarcerated? From the start, the risks are not the same, and the risks are worth the rewards for inmates. It's win-win for them, no matter what. And what about the bad officer? What about their business model? Also impeccable. They have found the way to attach themselves to a criminal element inside of a lawful institution in order to create business or to enact whatever their undesirable behaviors are. Bad officers are like bad inmates, depending on the conditioning of the staff as well, the condition of the inmate, in that reported infractions are strictly prohibited, especially by these individuals, and they make sure, especially by everyone else. You'd be amazed to be in a room like I have been, and you can have individuals in a room ranked from CO to chief deputy. And every single one of them will clam up about the truth. It's strange. You know what's really strange? Who's in the room? It's just us. It's just us. We're climbing up. The inmates don't have to be there for you to climb up, because you got inmate officers that are keeping an eye. You'd be surprised about the number of officers, rank and all, that adhere to the snitch rule. So, unlike the streets, officers and inmates, customers are confined in one location. The secrecy of what they're doing is kept by more than just inmates and officers. And this secrecy is rotting the industry, ruining careers, crippling rehabilitation, costing lives and careers. And a lot of these individuals started off as new officers, like you. They started off as good officers like you. And what happened? I'll tell you what happened. Good officers sometimes have a difficult time of aligning themselves with other good officers because it's hard to find instances where you get to work together. And in cases where you do find that, it is a much better place to be. And so what happens is that the good and the bad, right, or the good and the questionable are working together. And all the good person is doing is trying to do good. All the bad person has to do is just do one bad thing anytime, any day, anywhere, and boom. It's easy. So which is harder, being good or being bad? It's sad, and it's true in our personal lives, in our public lives, and in our detention lives. It's much easier to be bad than it is good. And that should be the difference between an officer and an inmate officer. And we have to get the inmate officers out, right? We have to. Be vigilant. Don't let your guard down. Even though inmates and some officers pressure others not to report, don't let your guard down. Don't listen to it. There are several reasons why good officers are reluctant to report infractions, and we know that, right? The fear of retaliation, lack of administrative support, the actual retaliation, pressure from inmates and staff, a culture of not reporting, reported infractions go unaddressed. I think that's probably the biggest thing. You can take so many good officers and turn them down at the door with the concerns about what's going on, and you might have locked them down from reporting anything else. Don't let your guard down. Do not. In most agencies, good officers far outweigh bad officers. And as for new officers, you must be vigilant and follow your policy and follow your training. If you have a choice as to align yourself with a negative person or positive person, you need to make the good choice. You have a choice to fall into negativity, gossip, and drama. Make the good choice not to. These are choices that we make. And as free people, and you are certainly free. If you're watching this, that means you're free. As free people, we make the choices. So be accountable and be responsible for the choices that you make. Follow policy and training. Want to have a very successful career in law enforcement in general? Follow your policy and your training, and I promise you, you're going to do well. You're going to move forward. See, some people like to qualify themselves as the perfect candidate for a job. That's what they think of themselves. But the truth about that person may not be entirely supportive of their own belief about themselves. And so don't be fooled by the fog in your own head about yourself. Don't sit and act like you deserve something when you know that you're infracting all over the place. You have to be honest with yourself, because whether you are or not, yourself knows what you're doing and what you've done. So when you stand about and talk about what you do as an officer, why you're deserving of promotion or something like that, then stand by your experiences and use your experiences as your tool, as your power, correct? You're in an interview. Here's the thing. I've never been tainted. I've never been corrupted. I've reported what I've seen. And I've stood by the agency in terms of what the mission was and what needed to be accomplished there. And I worked with people, not only for them to help me, but for me to help them improve. Because we know that when we're all doing good things, we don't have to worry about the million bad things out there that we can't see and that we can't measure until it's too late. That's what you should be saying to people when you're looking to move up, when you're looking to let people know where you stand. You can't say those things if you're not doing those things. That's a lie, right? You have to be doing those things. So many who complain about the industry and their agency are not doing much but complaining. And the harm that is done isn't often seen right away, but over time, it creates an extremely unhealthy environment. And it's not good advertisement either, right? In fact, a lot of times when people ask, hey, where do you work at? It's a good place to work. You say, oh man, I wouldn't work there. But you are. And you just push somebody away. Maybe it was a bad apple. That would be good. But maybe it wasn't. That would be bad. Come on now. Many of these same individuals are not following policy, they're not following training, and they contribute to the same negative environment that they complain about. Isn't it funny if you ever hear somebody say, man, it's so negative around here, people always being negative. That's the sense that people make sometimes. People, it's hard for people to see themselves. And therefore, when we're revealed, oftentimes it's through someone else's lenses. And though we know ourselves very well, what they say may be more accurate than what we are willing to admit, right? Especially about ourselves. So what we find is that individuals discriminately follow policy and training. Many follow policy and training that conveniences them and violates them when it doesn't. As a new officer, this is not hard to recognize, and this can be confusing. It's even more concerning with that individual when he's a supervisor or manager, right? When you're watching somebody, your superior, violate the rules or violate policy. That's not cool. Here's the truth. Individuals who intentionally violate policy and training, regardless of rank, are not good for the industry. They're not good for the agency. They're not good for you. That's why we advocate to everyone, follow your policy, follow your training, not people. They should be doing the same. If you want to know how to be successful in this industry, it starts with ethical behavior, attention to duty, and the courage to do the right thing. Seek advice and assistance when you believe that you are being required to either do something wrong or not report something that is reportable. Never forget your role. Never forget your role and never let anyone talk you out of your role or your morality. Though others may feel indifferent about their jobs or feel like it's okay to pervert the profession, you are not conditioned that way. You haven't been there long enough. And if you feel compromised or that you feel like you're being led astray, this is the time. In the beginning of your tenure, protect your career and stay away from those behaviors and practices. Your role is to report, to work on time, fulfill your duties and responsibilities, and to go home safe. That's your job. Your decision to join this profession could be the best decisions you've made for yourself and the profession. Don't let anyone define your future. If it involves tearing you down, crippling you by corrupting you, or endangering you by promoting a corruptive environment. Don't bring personal matters to work. One of the most difficult things, and it may not seem to be that difficult at all, is to keep personal matters away from work. Personal matters, including relationships outside of work and routines outside of work, should remain outside of work, right? I mean, we are human, and we got this thing called a mouth, and we talk, and we got this thing called, we like to share our business, and then when we're confined in situations, we run out of things that interest people and talk about, people start sharing their business. It's not just inmates that are looking for your vulnerabilities. Some bad acting officers will use your personal life against you as well. If you already don't have a romantic relationship at work, please advise, don't start one. And if you're in a relationship at work or you start one, you must report the relationship for your own best interest, as well as the best interest of the individual that you're involved with. It is also best for the agency and you that colleagues that are in relationships do not work in the same party unit together. It is inappropriate. And people say, well, I can keep this distant. You cannot. And you should not have to, because you should not be working in the same area. Life is stressful enough as it is. Try living your relationship behind bars and see where that gets you. You got to be careful. Try bringing your infidelity and other relationship woes to work and see where that gets you, right? And your work being a cause of the infidelity, because it's happening at work as well. See where that gets you. See, everybody, some people like to play the cat and mouse games, but the mouse has to be right every single time. The cat only has to be right once. Why would you want any part of your relationship, your family, your wife, your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your children, associated with where you work? Do you know where you work at? Do you know who you're working with? Who you're working for? Do you know who you're caring for? You want to bring your family in the facility? Your issues that you talk about at your table, in your bedroom, to your facility? Where do you see any healthy part of that at all? I don't think that's possible to find anything healthy part of that. I mean, yeah, people like to talk about salacious things, you know? Nobody's saying that you shouldn't talk about things. Just saying, be careful. You may be putting vulnerabilities out there that you may not be aware of. And many will tell you that there are a lot of things that they've told about themselves will come back and bite the crap out of them. It ain't been nice. It ain't been pretty. And trying to shake things that have already been started can be difficult. Could be career lasting, actually. Very difficult. As a new officer, you should be encouraged to help others and to communicate your needs. We have plenty of strong and courageous officers entering the field. They're impeachable, incorruptible, and are the example, right? The right out of the gate officer. Be that officer, stand proud for the profession and present the best profession that it has to offer, period. Be that officer.
Tyler McIntosh. I'm the administrative lieutenant at Appalachian Correctional Institution. I've been with the department right at 7 years. I promoted all the way to lieutenant right here at ACI. I started off as a new recruit at the West Unit. Then I promoted pretty quick to a sergeant. Did a good job in there. Got a chance at admin. And then I went to environmental health and safety. That was one of the biggest tasks. I'm one of them that I want to learn my job first before I go and promote. I think that's very vital. We had quite a few people interviewed for lieutenant. Got a chance, got selected, and here I am. I'm just supervising all my staff. I got a lot to do with the inmates, trying to get them to rec, canteen, all that. It keeps quiet on the compound. The inmates look up to you. As far as staff, we got the best admin staff there is in the whole state at ACI. I wouldn't trade not one of them for anything. Get to know your staff, you build a rapport with them, you get to know their families, they know your families. It's a smaller community, so everybody already knows everybody anyway, but you just get more in detail, so you get on a personal level with them. So it's just not coming to work 8 to 4, going home. You know something about it. You know that the kids got a ball game. You know if they're going fishing this weekend. You know if they're going hunting. Right when I got on, I had a captain come to me and ask me if I wanted to be part of the ROT team, which is a rapid response team. We get out, do the obstacle course, formations, all that. One of the best decisions I made with the department. It's taught me a lot, and just really leadership. I was assistant squad leader, then I finally made it to squad leader, and we just had a competition that we placed second in, and we take a lot of pride in it. Got a lot of special teams, so you come to the job, but then you get a little extra to do something fun. You get what you put into in this job. It's an awesome career. Like I said, I've been here 7 years. Wouldn't want to go anywhere else. I'm going to continue to work here, continue to promote. It's just a family.
So, plan your future. What's in store for you in year 2? What are your plans? What are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? Where do you want to be in your second year? Make sure you check out our year 2 module for corrections and detention. These modules are developed to encourage you to be the best that you can be. We want you to hear the things you should hear. And we want you to have a successful career in law enforcement. Use the experiences to build upon your future. It's your future. Don't fall into bad habits and bad behavior. Check out year 2, aiming towards promotion. We hope you enjoyed this module. Please browse and look at our module library. You'll be astonished by the people who have chosen to engage you. We want the best for you, and we will do everything that we can to ensure that you have the best training by the best in the field. That's my guarantee. We want to make sure that you have access to resources, the things that you need to help encourage you, not only to stay in the profession, but stay in the profession as a good officer, as a good person, as a decent person, a person who's looking to excel and move up. There are plenty of people in corrections that have outstanding careers, that have had incredible advancements. You are most likely one of those people. I'm encouraged, deeply encouraged by the fact that you've taken this video, that you've watched this video. We hope to see you very, very soon. It's been a joy. It's been a thrill. Thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing training with you. See you in year 2. see you year 3, see you year 4, see you year 20. We're going to watch, we're going to stay with you. And we want you to communicate with us as well. So you can always go to our website, dynamictrainingandconsulting.com. There's a little question area that you can fill in to reach out to us. You can email us at dynamic.training.academy.1@gmail.com. You can do that as well. But go to the website. It has all of our stuff on there, our contact information as well. We love talking to you. We love to hear from you. And we look forward to the amazing things that we're going to do in the future. Thank you so much, and God bless.